On this edition of the program, it's almost all Biden and almost none of it is great news. An apocalyptic view of what the polls might be telling us. Michael Cohen joins us to talk about the ad spend for the campaign and why they might be a little too late already. It's all coming up. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for May 28th, 2024. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you from Austin, Texas. We read now from Politico. One advisor to major Democratic Party donors provided a running list that has been shared with funders. It contains nearly 24 reasons why Biden could lose, ranging from immigration to high inflation, to the president's age, the unpopularity of Vice President Kamala Harris, and the presence of third-party candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Quote the advisor, "Donors ask me on an hourly basis what I think. It's so much easier to show them the list, so while they read it, I can pour a drink. The list of why we could win is so small, I don't even need to keep it on my phone." If Democrats are famously prone to bedwetting, then they should probably start selling mattresses. The mood surrounding the Biden 2024 campaign is bleak and growing bleaker for all the reasons on that anonymous campaign advisor's list. But I'll add one more here for you. They don't have the numbers. Democrats are 1-1 against Trump in the last two cycles, but in both, they had polling on their side throughout the summer. Comforting blue numbers with their sturdy plus signs next to them, shimmering sapphire projections for the states that mattered the most: Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And more than that, weak pink veils on supposed GOP must-haves like Texas and Florida. Of course, at the end of the day, both of those were razor-thin margin elections. Both of them, Trump overperformed the averages for months and months of polling. And so as we enter the post-Memorial Day regular season of this campaign, we have to ask ourselves a question. Are the Democrats doomed to repeat their past of rosy poll numbers without the rosy result? And what happens when the poll numbers aren't good as it stands? Well, Ryan Guest of Decision Desk HQ did a video over the weekend with a thought experiment. What if we took the current polling averages from 538 and Decision Desk and applied an average of the polling errors from 2016 and 2020 to those numbers? So basically, take how much the polls were wrong in those years, tack them onto the current numbers, and, well, the results are enough to have that anonymous advisor pour himself a double and then leave the bottle uncorked. Not only do states that are strong for Trump, like Texas and Florida and Iowa, get even redder, but it shows a clean sweep of the battleground states: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And in the ultimate insult, it would forecast the ultimate combo breaker: Minnesota, a state that's voted blue for 12 consecutive cycles, the state elusive to even the famed Reagan roll-up. Why is this? Well, it's because polls have underestimated Trump in both cycles. Of all the in-play states, only Colorado was biased toward Trump compared to the final result. Even scarier, the Rust Belt. And before we get to those numbers, let me say this clearly. Current polling suggests Biden has coalitional problems in the Sun Belt states of Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia that not only might not be fixable in this cycle, they could be a generational drag for Democrats going forward. And so, in my mind, if Scranton Joe is going to win, he's got to do it through the NFL's North divisions: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And right now, he is trailing in those states based on modern averages. But if history repeats, it's even worse than it looks. Polls underestimated Trump in the Rust Belt states in 2016 and 2020. And applying those errors to our current averages, it puts him up in Pennsylvania by 6, in Michigan by 5.7, and in Wisconsin by 9. So here's the caveat. While these polling errors may be informative, they may not be predictive. And we are just now exiting May, heading into a long, hot summer where the race can change. And Joe Biden has a cash-on-hand advantage, which this week his Super PAC put to substantial use, making commitments for television ads throughout a lot of those swing states. To talk about the details behind that and the strategy, we have Michael Cohen right after this update.
Under Trump, this kind of government will perish from the earth. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. That's over. That's done. If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave. And that's why I've joined the Biden-Harris campaign, because the only way to preserve our freedoms and hold on to our humanity is to vote for Joe Biden for president. Really. We don't have a choice.
That is Robert DeNiro in front of the same Manhattan courtroom where Donald Trump is facing charges related to the payment of Stormy Daniels. It's an election claim thing. Again, media slap fight. That's really what it is. And politically, which is what we care about on this show, it is the first time that the Biden-Harris campaign has decided to make a political statement during this trial. They had up till now kept their hands off for fear that this would look, well, political. Because it does. But I guess they assume that they have lost that argument since Donald Trump's poll numbers have gone up since the beginning of the trial, and now they're just going to create the media fanfare wherever they can. In fact, that was the Biden-Harris spokesperson's first statement, is that they are not here because of the trial. They are here because the media is here. Blaming the media for being at the trial that the Biden-Harris campaign wanted them to be at. They just wanted people to have a different point of view on it. I don't think that this necessarily shows a whole lot of coherence. It immediately gave the Trump campaign an opportunity to say what they've been saying for a while, that you have to drop all pretense. This is a political witch hunt. This is a banana republic situation. Robert DeNiro as a surrogate is curious. Can we say curious? I don't get the through line here, especially as this case enters into what is almost assuredly going to be its final week, barring any kind of super long deliberation with the jury. Trump's campaign made their closing arguments today. They called Michael Cohen, the bad one, not our Michael Cohen, who's on the show, but Trump's Michael Cohen, formerly Trump's Michael Cohen, now TikTok's Michael Cohen. They called him the gloat, the greatest liar of all time. It looks assured that this is going to wrap up soon. All eyes will be on the Newsmax juror to see whether or not it is a conviction or a hung jury. Either way, I can't say that I really understand the point of putting DeNiro out there. It just looks like you're playing defense. You are chasing. You are explaining. And when your message remains the same, he's a dictator. No, he's a super dictator. No, not only is it going to be bad, all of your rights are going to go away. Every single one of your rights are going to go away, and he's going to never leave. Okay. That's certainly an audacious argument. I don't know how much of America really believes it, but that's what they're doing. In another Trump case, Judge Eileen Cannon criticized special counsel Jack Smith's team for not properly consulting President Trump's attorneys on a motion to limit Trump's speech in the classified documents case resulting to the raid on Mar-a-Lago. This came after Trump claimed law enforcement could assassinate him. Cannon denied Trump's team's motion for censure. Prosecutors, which had asked Cannon to clarify the false claims from Trump violating his release conditions. Smith's team filed the motion late Friday without adequate consultation. Cannon emphasized the need for meaningful conferral between the parties. Trump's team accused prosecutors of violating rules, while prosecutors argued Trump's comments posed imminent danger to law enforcement. Cannon instructed both parties to detail their consultations more clearly, warning of possible sanctions for noncompliance. Here's what this was about. Some of the documents surrounding the Mar-a-Lago raid were made public. Based on what I have seen of people breaking down those filings, it didn't reveal anything especially crazy. But there is boilerplate amongst these raid documents that lethal force is authorized. This is apparently boilerplate that happens whenever anybody goes in to seize anything by the government. I assume it is just a legal disclaimer. However, because we're in a political season and anything that can animate a base is going to be used to animate a base, partially the reason why you don't do stuff like this in the middle of a political season, or at least there have been in the past norms that say that these kind of things should be held off during this season. It became a political football. And so prosecutor Jack Smith said that Donald Trump going up and saying, "Oh, I could have been assassinated. They were coming to kill me." That put law enforcement lives in danger because MAGA people could retaliate against FBI agents. And Judge Eileen Cannon said, you guys need to talk to each other more. Like, this cannot continue. You can't just be filing stuff like this. So it's not going to matter much. I mean, to be totally honest, stuff like this is the most it's going to matter because this trial is not probably even going to start before the election, let alone finish before the election. So there's that. And finally, the Biden administration is assessing whether an Israeli airstrike that killed 45 displaced Palestinians in a tent camp in Rafah violates President Biden's red line, according to two U.S. officials. Biden previously threatened to suspend some U.S. offensive weapons if Israel entered Rafah's population centers or caused a humanitarian crisis. The strike, which targeted senior Hamas officials, resulted in the deadliest incident since Israel's offensive began. The International Court of Justice has recently ordered Israel to halt operations in Rafah. Following the strike, IDF launched an operational investigation with Prime Minister Netanyahu calling the civilian deaths a tragic mistake. The White House is engaging with the IDF to determine the incident's details, which could influence U.S. policy toward Gaza. Despite prior efforts to mitigate civilian casualties, the incident is likely to increase political pressure on Biden to reconsider his stance on the conflict. He can reconsider all he wants, but he's boxed into a corner. The IDF says that they attacked two Hamas senior leaders. The senior leaders were intentionally stationed next to civilians. The IDF believed that they had enough distance. Apparently, there were munitions near where the Hamas leadership was. That set off a chain reaction that led to the tent fires that led to the dead displaced Palestinians. Whether or not you believe that, or you believe that the IDF is intentionally raining down fire and blood upon Rafah, the reality is that Joe Biden doesn't really have a whole lot of leeway in dealing with Israel. There's nobody on the other side of this conflict that would even make sense to partner with in the way that we have the partnership with Israel. Now, are there levers that Joe Biden can pull to force some kind of negotiated end to this. I don't even know if he really has that, to be honest. I mean, in any other scenario with Israel, maybe. But unless Joe Biden, by way of Egypt and Qatar, could negotiate the surrender or murder of all of Hamas's leadership in Rafah, then Israel's going to continue to stay there. There is nobody in the Israeli cabinet, as fractious as things are right now in that country, that would survive them not at this point achieving their objective of dismantling Hamas. So, it's awful. It's truly a humanitarian crisis. And your heart goes out to everybody that died. Not a whole lot. I mean, it's not like the Biden State Department has been particularly effective. And this, if we were dealing with the most effective State Department in history, would be a very, very, very big challenge. And that's your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go. Get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Patrons got my clips and thoughts about Donald Trump's speech to the Libertarian Party. You got it early. You got it Sunday night before Monday. The feedback on it was so good from patrons that we put it out to everybody. So hopefully you guys enjoyed a little taste. But imagine if that was just every week. Imagine if you got that treat every single week. Well, friends, it can be yours for the low price of a cup of coffee. If you'd pay me 1 cup of coffee each week to tell you everything that I thought about all the stories that we missed throughout the week, well, that's available. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Sign up at the $3 level. And now, Michael Cohen. We laid out in our first segment some of the reasons why the orbit around the Biden campaign is panicked, but there still is a lot of time to go, and the Biden campaign does have a cash-on-hand advantage against the Trump campaign to explore what they will do with that money, specifically on television. We have the man who wrote the book about the modern political campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Michael Cohen. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you, sir. It's great seeing you in town.
Yes.
I assume it's nice to know that you got out of the Libertarian Party convention alive.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they did, although I don't want to say too much because we are in talks to have their nominee here on the show coming up very soon.
Nice.
But yeah, I hope so. I hope that they come on because I want to talk to them. I mean, and also to briefly talk about the Libertarian Convention. It is, I think, probably unfair to slam them in this moment because in a bygone era, both major parties, Republicans and Democrats, would have this same situation. They wouldn't have a long primary process where everybody could shoot their slings and arrows and say mean things about each other. Everything happened at the convention. You had a very raw moment where you put forth a nominee, and then you had some time to heal all wounds. Now, they're libertarians, so I don't know exactly how much these wounds are going to heal. The fight is very, very strong, but we'll see. But it certainly took.
But this is what a convention used to look like.
Yeah,
so this is what a convention used to look like. You used to have these sort of battles, of ideas and candidates, and then you would leave. I mean, it wouldn't be these sort of like mass-produced things where half of it was recorded. I mean, they went out, they had a convention, they battled it out. They even battled out over who they wanted to speak in front of them. And, good for them. They had an actual convention as opposed to what we're going to see later on in the summer, which will be coronations and tightly, written, AI assisted speeches. And, these guys went out and battled it out.
Yeah, the biggest thing that you see with the conventions down the road are, well, who speaks when, who do they speak in front of, who do they speak behind? Like that's
what
pretty
slot
much the
they
only
get.
That's the only really interesting thing. And then whenever Bill Clinton speaks is how long he's going to go over. That's really the only stuff that's up for debate with these kind of those kind of events.
Exactly. No, but it's great to see you, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I was thrilled to hang out with you in DC. Apparently, you were the only friend of mine in DC that did not go to the beach on Memorial Day weekend, which I fully did not realize was Memorial Day weekend when all that stuff wound up getting booked. But I was thrilled to see you, and I'm thrilled to talk to you about this because according to Ad Impact, Biden's largest super PAC has reserved $134.5 million on broadcast and cable in the following battlegrounds for the fall campaign. Their biggest commitment is to Pennsylvania. Second is Michigan. Third is Arizona. Down at the bottom, North Carolina and Nevada, with Georgia and Wisconsin in the middle. The biggest spend is $36.3 million. That is a gigantic chunk of change to put on television, especially for the fall. So I wanted to talk to you broadly about television advertising and then whether or not those numbers say anything to you. We'll start with the latter. When you see those states and you see those numbers, what immediately jumps out?
It jumps out that Joe Biden grew up in Pennsylvania, is spending $36.3 million to win his home state. That is a tremendous amount of money. Now, it's not an insignificant state. It's a big state. He has to win it. And it's an expensive market, particularly in Philadelphia. And there's a lot going on in Pennsylvania, so there are a lot of different markets that you have to spend money in. It's a very, very expensive state. But, you know, if you're Scranton Joe, you know, it seems to me that's a big number. For example, if you saw Donald Trump spending $36.3 million in Florida or New York or anywhere that he claims to have lived, you'd say to yourself, wow, it's a real head scratcher. But in this case, this seems to me a much more defensive play that we have to hold on to this state no matter what. And that's a firewall state. If we lose that, we might as well just, you know, move to Portugal or something like that. But I think I think that's number one. That's the most important thing on the list that I think is a mind blower. The second piece of it is how little he thinks about Nevada. It seems to me like Nevada is a state that he also must win. And at the end of that campaign, when Nevada fell, you felt like, okay, I think he might have this. And only spending $5.6 million in Nevada. Now, it's a one-trick pony kind of state. You know, there's only really one big media market. Yeah. But gosh, you better win that. But gosh, you better win that state. And so, if I were the media planners for that campaign, I'd be looking at that and like that needs to be at least 10 million, double what it is. And maybe that's what they're going to do. But this opening strategic look at where they think that they have to win is a very defensive posture as opposed to an offensive posture, which is like, okay, there's nothing outside of the markets that everyone's been talking about. There's no other state that you're thinking, oh, we might be able to tip. This is we got to run it back. We have to win what we have to win. And then, maybe we'll get to Nevada with more money. But gosh, I mean, you lose Nevada or, you know, Nebraska too. I mean, you know, for my money, I'd be spending a lot more money in, you know, at those places, making sure that we had it. Take $5 million off of, you know, Pennsylvania, and make sure it goes to those other places because I think it's too Pennsylvania heavy at this point, and it shows that he's worried.
So it's funny you say that because I didn't think of the fact that we didn't see any strange states on here. When you got a lot of money to play with, and the Biden campaign and their surrounding PACs have nothing but money. Like we are going to be looking. If you turn on the television in these states in the fall, you are going to see one of the two ads, and it's probably going to be 2 or 3 to 1 to Biden in terms of the amount that they are putting down right now. But they went to Florida and said, we believe with an abortion thing on the ballot that we're going to be in play there. You don't see any money there. You don't see any money in Texas. You don't see any money in Iowa. You don't see any money in any of the states that Democrats have historically said, well, you know what, let's put a chip down just to maybe make them think.
Make them spend. You know? Exactly. None of that. This is absolutely run it back. We know the way we win. And this is what we have to do to win. This is a very realistic but defensive
Yeah.
buy. And now I would imagine also the other thing too is that they also want people to know, and this is more important from a strategic standpoint, because the campaign is long and everyone knows who's going to run. $134.5 million, that's a big dump of money, right?
Yeah.
But it also says we're willing to spend, but you have to make sure that you're also going to tell people we're willing to spend. Here's where we're going to spend it. We're not going to be throwing money away in Florida. So to donors, give us more.
Oh.
We're being responsible with your money. We're not chucking it away in Florida. We're not spending money in South Carolina or Texas. We know we're not going to win there. If you give us money, we're going to put it towards places where we know we have to win and where we know we're going to win. So in a realistic way, you can then go behind closed doors to donors and say, particularly the big donors, we're spending your money wisely.
Yeah.
Instead of going and doing stupid things like, trying to win all of Nebraska.
But that feels like a lack of faith, right? If they're in a Mother May I situation where you have to prove, look, I've dotted my I's and I've crossed my T's, I'm not doing anything ridiculous. That means that there's nobody in that campaign that can kind of swashbuckle into a room with a mega donor and say, hey, I'm playing 5D chess. Let me lay out exactly how I'm making them spend that money. It doesn't sound like anybody has that kind of sway.
No. They understand whether or not they want to tell us they understand. They understand the contours of this race. The best they could do is eke out some kind of a victory on election day. Right now, they know they're behind. All the polls are bad. All the context around the campaign is bad. When or if Trump gets acquitted or even convicted, it's going to be a bad day for them as well. His numbers are going to spike because anytime anything ever bad happens to Trump, they spike for various reasons. So I think to a real extent, they're trying to meet the donors where they are, which is that they're worried, they're concerned, they want to know that you're going to be an adult with their money. And this says to them that, they are going to.
This is X's and O's. Let me prove to you that that we're doing things the right way by the book. Let me go back to those Sunbelt states here real quick. Sure. Arizona is their number one spend, $21.5 million. Georgia is second, $19.8 million. And Nevada down below, $5.6. You're right. Las Vegas is not a very expensive media market. Clark County contains 80% of the vote that you need to win. So it is cheaper. But it surprises me that Arizona, which, the Phoenix media market, to a lesser extent Tucson, that you're putting more money there than in Georgia. Georgia was the tipping point state for them going forward. Not to say that Arizona wasn't. Both were extraordinarily close. Does this say to you that, their hopes for Georgia and Nevada, and even to a certain extent Arizona, are just less, that they understand this is a Rust Belt election? It's Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania or bust?
See, I think Arizona is a good play. I mean, I think that the one thing that they understand also is that Carrie Lake is not a great candidate. And she's running statewide, and we've got a shot at that one because that's going to bring out a whole bunch of people. And also, don't forget, Carrie Lake also underperformed her polling. Yes. And so right now, it's very possible that that money can be really meaningful in that state. My guess is that what they'll say to donors is, they're our number 3 target. We would love to spend a lot more there. You know that we're going to lay everything down on Pennsylvania and Michigan, but we really want Arizona. And to do that, here's the money that we're going to ante up with. We need more. Same thing with Georgia. But again, when I'm looking at this between Nevada and North Carolina is a stretch. But Nevada is the one that I'm really scratching my head on because that's a number that they have to get. To win. They don't have states that they can, quote unquote, lose comfortably and still come out with a non-tie in the House, which would go against them because of the caucuses, by state, which is how you would end up in the House with an election that goes to Trump. So it's a gots to win, right?
Yeah.
So to me, the outlier still is Nevada. North Carolina, to me, is a little bit more of a stretch. If I was them, I'd be doubling up on what Nevada was to ante up. I would have found another 5 million somewhere and made sure that was in 10 plus. Because to me, that says to them that that's not smart. Like they need Nevada. They can't just write that off as a North Carolina. But I'm not upset about Arizona, though. I think that's that's a good number to start off with, and it also shows them how important it is because everybody knows Pennsylvania and Michigan, but they're all concerned about what would be that third one, and it's definitely between Arizona and Georgia, and that's where they need more money.
Yeah, I guess, we're going to spend a lot of time slicing and dicing all these states and
Sure.
assuming that there are differences between, okay, well, if you win Michigan and you win Pennsylvania, but you lose Wisconsin, then you can win Nevada. In my mind, I mean, look, we've gone 2 cycles now where they've all flipped the exact same way both times. We've seen Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona all flip the exact same way both times.
Right.
To break them up and mix and match them like they're not all going to herd, I think is a mistake. And either you got a winning message or you don't. And this is where I want to go, because when I first sent you these numbers yesterday, your biggest issue wasn't where they were spending statewide. It was when they were spending. The fact that this is for the fall and not immediately.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest problem, like you and I had a text exchange on this, yesterday, or at least I sent something to you, and I'm like, "What do you think about this?" Yeah, I think that that's where we are right now. My point of view on this is that if you're an incumbent, the best thing you can do, and this has been proven over the Bush cycle against Kerry and the Obama cycle against Romney, is you must define your opponent early. Now, everybody knows who Trump is, and yet, are they really focused on who Trump is or the memory hole of where they remember the economy? And I would say to you right now, they're remembering the good part of the Trump administration, and that's what they're thinking about. And so if you don't spend that money early, and early means right now, right now, up to the convention, then you're giving your opponent the opportunity to define who they are, which is what Trump is doing right now, which is basically I've been persecuted politically by the administration, and that's why this is totally unfair. And any fair-minded person is going to look at this and say that I'm being screwed, so vote for me. That's the narrative right now, which has basically got his base out and helped with some independence. If you don't have a counter message to that right now, or by the way, if you don't start reconfiguring what people think about Trump and doing it over time, you're going to lose. This is a losing strategy with money, not a losing number of dollars spent in the fall. Telling me that you're going to spend $134.5 million after the June debate, under which, if you haven't defined who Trump is, when you get on that debate stage and you start landing punches that you think are going to work, if you haven't seeded the ground with what you're going to say anyway, by the time they get that message, it's going to be coming out of nowhere, and they won't be able to put it in the right perspective. So you need to define the debate before you get to the debate, and then at the debate, reinforce your points. And if you're not spending that kind of money right now, you may have already lost the election by the time that debate goes. Because I'm telling you, if Trump has a good debate, this thing may fall off the rails very quickly. And then we start getting into other discussions you and I have had, which is how does Biden, off ramp, and then how do they on ramp Kamala Harris or somebody else? And then you have a convention in Chicago where the DNC looks strangely like what you saw over this past weekend with the Libertarians, but much worse. And they're one of the two parties. And so you would have a historically bad convention if all of a sudden Biden just decides, hey, you know what? I'm sick. My doctor told me I can't run anymore. Good luck, everybody.
I've been on the record and saying, and look, we will get to that if we get to that, but I don't believe that God himself could come down from heaven and request that Joe Biden resign, and he would say yes. No. That being said, I wonder just how persuadable this electorate is, because this is not John Kerry, who was known in D.C., but you could define as a windsurfing dolt. He's not Mitt Romney, which you could come out of the primary with. Everybody forgets that Newt Gingrich is the one that really defined Mitt Romney, and Barack Obama ran with it and made him a bloodless plutocrat who puts his dog on the top of the car. That happened early. I don't really know, but both of those narratives that came out of it kind of came out of the primaries too. not only is Trump a defined candidate, but he didn't really have a primary. He had a stress test.
A sideshow.
Maybe.
Yeah, sideshow.
He went to the doctor. They took his blood pressure, and then they said, yep, you're good to be the nominee. And then he walked through it. And with, a little bit of Nikki Haley stuff there, that went away last week when she endorses him.
You had that.
Then
I'm with your mom on that one.
I know.
I really am. Yeah.
Like you
Most disappointing politician in my lifetime.
Yeah. I think I can actually reveal now in the interview with my mom, I had texted you because this is all happening in real time. And I was reading some of the real time texts that you were sending me, including the wedding singer gif of put a bullet in my head.
Put a bullet in my head. I know. It's awful. You brought me that happy news. I was having a very good day that day. And then you sent me, you're like, hey, guess what? Your girl went down. I'm like, no. I was going to send you the Luke Skywalker gif.
Yeah.
The Darth Vader gif, but I'm like, no, it's funnier if it's Sandler.
No, it was a great one. But in all seriousness, is this electorate even persuadable? They know these people. They have their feelings on it. I think that you could change if the reality around them changed. You could maybe assign credit or blame in a different way, but I don't think that you can make either of these guys something that they're not.
Well, I think Trump has done a really good job of making him somebody that he's not. I mean, I think he has spent the entire time running around as if he's being persecuted and getting ready to be put up on a cross. I mean, and he effectively changed everyone's mind of, oh, he did an insurrection. He totally screwed up COVID. Now it's, oh, wow, inflation was really good when he was there. And that's the most important thing. So all of these things can be true, right? I mean, the same thing with Biden. Like, instead of saying, you know what, we got out of COVID, we've done a number of different things that have really helped people. Instead of that, we're all focused on some of the things that didn't go well, like Afghanistan and Hamas and Gaza and inflation. And so, and immigration. Don't forget, the Republican Party spent the better part of 2 years moving immigration from a bottom feeder kind of issue all the way up to the top. That's running a campaign. If you don't run a campaign, it doesn't matter what's going to happen, okay? I mean, then you've already decided to lose. So from my perspective, it's that you have to run a campaign. And whether or not it's going to work or not, well, I mean, there's the opposition and there's also the voter, right? So there's three people in this room. And so if you decide that you're just, well, I can't move anybody, well, that's the kind of attitude that most people who work in campaigns would never take, right? No. If you're in a campaign, your whole deal is I'm going to do everything I can to beat this guy, right? And now whether or not they are persuadable is an open question, okay? Yeah. So I think that, whether or not there's a whole bunch of people who could be persuaded, well, put it this way, I bet you Democrats could be persuaded to show up. Yes. And then the second piece of this is, can you get some of those independents who are now like, man, I don't know about these cases on Trump. It kind of feels like they're going after him, to come back and be like, yeah, first of all, we didn't do anything about that. That's not the Biden administration doing that. And number two, the things you actually care about is you lost 2 members of your family because of this guy. And on top of that, there was an insurrection and you may have fewer rights going into next year because this guy's going to take it away from you. He already has with abortion and he's running on it. So, from my perspective, you need to frame the election differently and then see how it's working in the marketplace before you then make tactical changes to whether or not something's working. But you have to decide to try. If you decide not to try, you should not be in this business.
Well, you should be running a campaign. I mean, that's again, I don't want to, because we're going to have plenty of it, of just me spazzing out and just raising my arms to the sky and asking, like, show me the strategy aside from
same here.
We're winning. Yeah. Like, if you look at the moves they're making, they are making moves as if they are Reagan running for re-election. Everything's great. We save the economy. We have the best foreign policy, and we're going to buy all these ads in the fall that are just going to be sepia tone, morning in America. Finally, we did it. Let's finish the job, folks. where, two things stuck out to me over the last week. Cook did a series of swing state polls that had a number that I think should scare anybody who reads it on the Democratic side. Swing state voters are more worried about what will happen with the border if Biden wins than abortion if Trump wins. That is a wholesale political malpractice failure on every level. It means you need to look at everything that you are doing and you need to reverse the polarity. It's got to be Star Trek down in the bottom. Reverse the polarities, because everything that you're doing right now on those two issues is a disaster. If people are more worried about that than they are. And also the other number that should be terrifying for Biden is that Democratic voters are blaming him for the Roe decision. And to be totally honest, I can see where you come to that when every step of the way since then has been, don't worry, vote. If you're not the guy who's going to operate and solve these problems, and instead you're more interested in running these horrifying, grim ads about women being close to death or dying because of ectopic pregnancies in red states, but you won't do anything about it, then why should they trust you to vote for you again? So you could not do something for another 4 years and then hope that you vote after that?
Yeah. I mean, the point is, like, where are the executive orders? Where are the lawsuits? Where are all the other powers of the presidency? Where are the big speeches? Where's the Oval Office address after Roe falls? I mean, where are the things that the tools that you actually have that you can use? Now, you can say whatever you want about Trump, but Trump used every tool he had and then some to try and get what he wanted. Okay.
Yeah.
And they see that, and people see that, and they're like, okay, that's a guy who's trying to be president.
Yeah.
Biden just saying go out and vote makes it all about him and not about them. That's the biggest problem with this.
Yeah.
It's not what I can do for you. It's what you can do for me. When that happens, you've broken the compact with the people who support you. And then it really becomes about you. And then, okay, well, if you're not going to help me, even when you have the job, what are you going to do when you have the job and maybe you lose, the Senate, and then you have neither one of the chambers, right? What are you going to do that's so different than what you could do today, right? Why do you need another 4 years if over the past 4 years you've lost Roe and immigration's a dumpster fire and inflation is bad, and forget about what happened even in Afghanistan and in Gaza. I mean, what's happening here right now? What are you doing about it? I mean, that's what you need to be doing. You need to be doing the job, giving people a reason to vote for you.
I forgot where I saw it, but one of the biggest declining things with voters for Biden is competency. And that's really where you first saw, the Afghanistan thing was the first moment where you saw his approval numbers sink, and they've never recovered from it.
And they never,
whether or not people really care about foreign policy, it was obviously extraordinarily ugly on television.
Competent.
If anything, I don't think he got the worst of it, because we still haven't litigated the fact that we drone struck a family to retaliate for the Marines that were killed on the base, which there's evidence to say we might have known about beforehand. But the reason why that was an issue, the reason why immigration has landed like it has, the reason why you see things like this, the Gaza pier, which was his big moment during the State of the Union address, $300 million so they could directly deliver aid into Gaza. Not only is it shelled by Hamas immediately, which people who were read in on this could have predicted from 50 feet, but also it's broken up in high seas and now it's beached on the shore. This is just it's a competency thing. And that's something where, if we are hired to do the young Cohen advocacy organization is hired to do triage on this campaign, like, those are the things that you need to address immediately. number one, people just need to get fired publicly immediately. You should do it on MSNBC. You should do it on Morning Joe. You should call up Lloyd Austin and say you're fired on MSNBC in front of everybody. And then you need to look into the camera and say, we got a long way to go. We're working as hard as we can. Corporate greed's a problem. Inflation's a problem, but we're on the way there, and we can do it.
But there were moments. There were moments for that, right?
Yes.
After Afghanistan, Austin should have been fired. And you know what? Trump's administration has sort of reset the expectations of voters. If you do something and you don't do it well, you're gone, right? Now, in Trump's administration, if you pissed him off, you're gone, right?
Yes.
But the idea was that these people didn't stick around for 4 years. And so that's what people were thinking. They were like, wait a minute, Austin's staying? Like, that was a disaster. Like, what's going on? And that goes to your point about competency. Same thing about inflation. Inflation after 3 or 4 quarters of it, why is the Treasury Secretary still there? Should be gone. Yeah. Right? I mean, same thing with with Gaza, right? Whatever's going on there, how did you not know the UN was involved in what was going on, with the terrorists? You're out. I mean, we need new leadership at the UN at least. I mean, do something. These are the tools that you have, right? You have the power of executive orders. You have the power to hire and fire people in the administration, and you have the power to do, other things like speeches from the Oval Office. He's done none of those things. And you can't tell me that you're doing the job if you're not actually doing the job, right?
Well, and all the while, it's compounded by the fact that he looks old, he sounds old, he keeps screwing up things in his abbreviated press remarks. I will say kindly, considering they're not long. I mean, I watched Trump at the Libertarian convention. That dude was not getting any of the love that he normally gets.
He went at it,
but he ripped through his teleprompter. I have never seen him rip through his teleprompter speech, do less ad libs that he normally does. And that was like a 38-minute speech, which is speed reading for him, but
might be a record.
Longer than what Biden is speaking for now. He's speaking for like between 20 and 30 minutes, maybe. And those are full remarks.
And importantly, do you want to just get your 3% or do you want to win?
Well, that's
right. That's the line, right? And you know what? It's A, true, 2, brutal, and 3, very Trumpian, right? Yeah. And it shows you that he's still in there, right? No matter what kind of crazy stuff he said, if he could rip off one of those, you're like, yeah, he's still that guy. Whereas with Joe Biden, you watch him and he's wandering and he's not. I mean, it looks like what it is. And, whether or not it's real, we'll find out someday when the histories are written. But man, it's not a good look. And it's worse than what George H.W. Bush did in the debate, which was look at his watch for a minute. I mean, you have hours and hours of tape to cut. And it doesn't really matter how much you spend because it's going to end up online. It's going to go all over the place. In other words, one more thing about the advertising. Yeah. The best advertising, traditional advertising, also mimics what's going on online. And if you're going to go ahead and release ads like this, they have to be shareable. They have to be very interesting and chippy, right? Because online is pretty chippy, particularly X at this point. And if you're not doing that kind of stuff, it's not going to help.
Well,
doesn't matter how much you
I will say, I believe that this PAC is American Bridge, and they have pledged that they were going to do 50-50 spend on TV and online. I don't know if we're going to get
fair enough
the numbers.
Because it says broadcast cable.
Yeah, so we can imagine that there's another 134 million that'll go into online. I don't think that online has the same, because Ad Impact basically like has sources with the television stations that say,
they know what's being placed.
This is the amount that's coming in. There's only X amount of them per state, so it's easy to do it unless you got moles inside Google and Facebook and stuff like that. Yeah, you're not going to get those numbers. But let's assume that they are doing that.
Right.
Still, what I wonder about with Biden is buy all the ads you want. What's the message? What is the Because right now, I think we've reached the end of Trump's a criminal. It was a loser. You weren't able to do it. You weren't able, lawfare backfired. The idea of it made Trump more sympathetic. So now you have to define him on another level. And what I worry is that the only move is just to get more and more hyperbolic about, this is not just the end. This is the end of America. Everything falls apart, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if America's buying it. And that's hard because you can't, it only goes up to 11. You can't turn it up any farther, and solemnly look into the camera and say everything will be gone if you don't vote for me. If people don't buy it, if people think you're lying.
I mean, the biggest problem with the America's going to die argument is that they don't believe that Biden saved America.
Yeah.
Okay. So like we went through possibly the crazy 4 years, and then it ended up in the worst pandemic in our lifetimes, right? And it was obviously blown, by how the government responded. But also, the government responded really well, and we got a vaccine. So it's complicated. Yeah. And you're just going to be able to say, okay, well, logistically, we got it out to everybody, and we saved X amount of people. No, because voters believe that they saved themselves because they got the vaccine. So they to this point about competency, what did they do right? Okay, so they got the vaccine out. All right, great. So they're just as good as Amazon, right? So in other words, like, what is the Biden administration good at? Why do I feel like I should reelect them? And why is that any better than what I'm going to get from Trump? Because we're not going to get another million-year, pandemic next time. So what did we have? We just had a guy who was just shouting at people. And, people like MMA anyway now, and they like reality TV, so they're into shouting. I mean, so like, what exactly are you getting other than a guy who's probably going to die in office and give us somebody we roundly don't want? It's a tough argument, right? And so what you have to hope, if you're Biden, is that in June, you not only win the debate, but Trump loses. Like, Trump reintroduces himself as that crazy guy. You're like, oh yeah, that's why I don't go to Thanksgiving, because he's always there.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what they have to hope for. But you're basing your campaign on someone else, not yourself. That's the problem right now with the campaign. They don't have, they're looking at the grid and they're saying, well, what can we say about us? Well, we're fine. What can we say about them? Well, he's going to do bad. And then what can other people say about us? And what can other people say about him? Like, that's the grid you look at if you're looking at a campaign. And right now they've decided that they've solved for X on themselves, which is a mistake. Yeah. And they've also solved for X on what the candidate's going to say about, the opposition's going to say about himself, which is not the case. If you've been watching the campaign like you have, this is the best run campaign that Trump's ever worked on. It is even money to me that Trump shows up, he's calm, cool, and collected, and that's it. He doesn't set his hair on fire.
Nope.
He wins the debate by not being crazy, and then it's over.
Sorry. We
can just fast forward to November. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Well, trust me, we got debates. I love debates. So if you were going into this and it's a styles make fights situation, you are betting, if you are Joe Biden, that you get the Donald Trump that you got in 2020 in that first debate, where historically incumbents don't do great in first debates. They oftentimes are too full of themselves. Nobody can tell them anything. It takes them one punch in the face for them to really get back up to speed. It's happened through many, many cycles.
Exactly.
Trump did that in 2020 with that first Cleveland debate, ran over everybody, was chaos in a moment where you needed stability. Biden hits him with the "man, will you just shut up" thing. Boom. Great. Perfect. 10 out of 10, no notes. If Trump rolls into this and just quotes the record, it's, even if he's still Trump, even if he, runs over Tapper a few times, but just says numbers, You can't count. I don't think anybody, it is political malpractice if you are involved in the Biden campaign to look at your candidate and say, you can save this rhetorically. He can't. It's not going to happen. He might come off as relatable, but the Joe Biden that bullied Paul Ryan back in 2012, he doesn't live here anymore.
No.
He's not. No. He's not here.
He's not a member of
there ain't no malarkey.
No.
There ain't no more bunch of stuff. Like, that's gone, dude. It's over. And the more liability he has to open his mouth and talk extemporaneously, the more you're looking at an LCC, you're looking at a Hirsch Goldberg, Poland is here up on stage. Like, that's, that's where you can get into really, really bad territory. But then again, he is Trump. Is he going to get too excited and fired up and ripped on whatever British Sudafed that he takes, like, and just really want to go for the knockout punch and now it looks like he's bullying an elderly man? Like, maybe that's possible. It's certainly within the realm of possibility, but boy, you are essentially betting that your opponent is going to come out and immolate. And I don't know if that's historically a great bet.
Not only that, but both of these guys have been told for the past 4 years that they're the bee's knees, right?
Yeah.
And so they're not ready for a fight like this. Either one of them really aren't. And so if you're looking at it, well, who's the more volatile person? Okay, Trump, right? So I could see why Biden believes that he could just get under his skin and just knock him off his game a little bit and make him seem like a crazy person, right?
Yeah.
But Biden, he hasn't done a bunch of interviews, so he's not used to answering questions. He's not used to being sort of off the cuff, really funny all the time.
No.
He's used to kind of like being a little lost. And, one moment like that is all it's going to take. Because that's what happens in debates. They become about 1 or 2 moments, right?
Yeah.
It might be shut up, man. Well, a lot of us at that point wanted to say to Trump, shut up, man. Like, he was echoing what voters wanted someone to say to this guy, right?
Yeah.
And like, that was the perfect thing at the perfect time in the perfect campaign, right? But in this case, like, if, Tapper says, well, President Biden, that's not exactly what happened, right? And then what, you're going to go after Tapper? Good luck with that from the left.
Nobody wants the Candy Crowley, though. Candy Crowley was the last one to real-time fact check like that, and that became controversial.
Yeah, but I just feel like, if Biden just kind of looks lost or kind of like zones out or just looks kind of really vacant, like even on the cutaways, like if he's not totally locked in, if he's not totally like in command of the podium, like it's like body language. Cause like, you're like, okay, I've seen clips of this guy. It seems like he's older. I get he's older, but damn, he went up and did the State of the Union address and he was on fire. Right. And like, if that's the Biden we get, like that's the Biden that could win if Trump also does the other thing. So like Biden has to upend this kind of race and sort of reset it. He needs to give a State of the Union kind of performance, and Trump has to look ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's what he's got to be banking
Well,
on.
I would say, all right, so if you're Biden, the strategy is you want to push him into things that he likes to talk about and he shouldn't talk about. So you want to push him into you believe the election was stolen, go on. You believe that January 6th wasn't that big of a deal, go on. Those are the things that you want Trump to do it. If Trump doesn't take the bait and Trump says, Joe, you're ridiculous, that's absolutely insane. What you really should be talking about is the border. If Trump can pivot on those things, it is an absolute wrap.
Yeah, it's annihilation. Yeah, no doubt.
All right. We have plenty of time to talk about the debate, which is only a month away, less than a month away now, which is crazy that it's that early.
I'm actually going to be in Louisville, coming off of like a couple of bourbon tours, which feels like a really good pre-party for this. Like I'm going with a buddy of mine from my fraternity, way back when. And I feel like that was really well planned. So I'll be real ready for that. And I'll look forward to talking to you after.
Let me ask you this, as somebody who might know something offhand. I'm putting together just like for literal, just nerds, just the worst political nerds on the planet, like me and you, just debates that could inform how this is going to go. Because this is a weird debate. It's early. It's going to be in a television studio. Obviously, you have two former presidents. That has not happened on television ever. Is there any debate that you would say is like an absolute, like that you are reminded of, or you think that this will be similar to?
Let me give you a couple. So if I am doing debate prep for Trump,
Yeah.
what I'm going to look at is that first Obama debate where Romney killed him.
Yep.
Okay. And be like, okay, you have an opportunity to do this. And this was against a guy who had all of his faculties, but Romney took him out.
Yeah.
And you hate Romney. I know you hate Romney, but look at what he did to Obama. Okay. Now, sir, you could do a better job than that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's what I would show him and be like, look at how he did it. Right. And this is what's going to happen. The incumbent president's going to come in. He's not going to be ready. The other one I would show to Biden would be Reagan's first debate, where Mondale kind of roughed him up a bit.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, look, he was an old guy. So were you. All right. You think you're folksy like Reagan. Like this is all playing into like who Biden thinks he is. But he lost that debate to Mondale. And he wiped Mondale's ass in that election. I mean, he won 49 out of 50. So it's a winnable situation if you don't fall into this kind of trap. So if I'm them, I would look at those two debates and say, okay, both televised, both with incumbent presidents, and this is how the person who did not win ended up winning that first debate. And it's a cautionary tale for both of them. Okay? And so that's what I would say.
I like that. Yeah, I would, the one that I would say you also have to take a look at was the final primary debate in 2020, which was post-COVID, but it was in the CNN. It might be in the same CNN. Oh, actually, I think it was the DC CNN studio, not the Atlanta CNN studio, but that was Bernie Sanders versus Joe Biden. If you want to get a sense of what that kind of antiseptic thing is going to look like, then maybe that. Oh, a little bit of news, by the way, that I haven't seen anybody mention in that libertarian speech amongst all the chaos. Trump said that Biden requested sitting down, not standing up, and he said no to that. So who knows? I have no reason to believe that's not true, but that's, to me,
that's political nerdy stuff. I love it.
Yeah, but also it's like no, you want Biden standing out. If you can make him stand on one leg, you want to make him do that. You want all the blood to be used at all time because you don't want it in his brain.
Well, I mean, you shoot him up with the vitamin B12 and all the other stuff. This is the pharmaceutical debate coming up. These guys are going to be jacked on stuff. Like if you would have drug testing before this debate, these guys would both fail. There's no doubt. I mean,
they're gonna have Biden they're gonna have Biden on like a vampire schedule. Like he's gonna be waking up at like 5 o'clock in the 5 o'clock.
You're just not gonna see him for a week before he goes up.
No morning. He's gonna be
nothing on the schedule.
At night.
Nothing. He's gonna get the PDB and that's gonna be it. He's gonna go back to sleep.
Back to sleep. You want to peak at the right time, Joe.
Right.
Michael Cohen, the Modern Political Campaigns book. Go ahead and everybody get it. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, brother.
And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. You want to send me an email? It is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of our show. TikTok is Justin R. Young. Instagram is Justin R. Young. On Twitter, you can find me at Justin R. Young. And if you want the full episodes, comment, have a good time with our friends on YouTube. YouTube.com/politics. Having a lot of fun there. A lot of fun. And you can see the smiling faces of all the voices that you've come to know. YouTube.com/politics. You can also share the audio version of this show, px3podcast.com. Support us with a one-time donation, paypal.me/paidjury. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And send me anything you'd like in the mail. P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas, 78715, including a fantastic listener who sent along the following hat, as well as a very, very nice and supportive check. This is for the Rogue River Pharmacy. It is a camo hat you can see on our YouTube. It's got 2 crossed rifles and an RX below it. And their slogan for the Rogue River Pharmacy is guns and drugs. And if you know anything about your boy Justin Robert Young, I've probably engaged with one more than the other. But a shout out to the Rogue River Pharmacy in Oregon. And thank you to everybody who supports this show, sends along really, really nice things. Somebody sent a pregnancy pillow from my wife. And we are greatly, greatly, greatly appreciative of that. Again, the P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas, 78715. You can always get our bonus content at TakePoliticsSeriously.com. $3 tier gets you 2 bonus podcasts per week covering all the news we miss on our free podcasting schedule. And our $10 tier gets you that, plus your name read at the end of the show like these fine folks in the Titanic. $10 tier. Sugar Brady, Sam, John, Niemeister, Edwin, and Vote Gloria Young for King of the New World Order. Brian, Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checker, Sarah Jeannie, Matthew, Dr. G, Shad, Bob, Chill, Dustin, Brad, D-Laser, Nick, Just Another Pilot, Middle-Aged Mike, Utah, Jimmy, Montana, The Jen, Alo, D. Reilly, Andrew, Lisa, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Devon, the CFP, Gloria, Gray Zone, Peepaw, J. Van Ord, Neil, John, DP4 Bongo, Neil, His Nerdiness Charles, Audrey Stoll Adler, Spot, Darren, Idris Arslani, and Berkeley, Steven, Nomadic Terran, Molly's Delightful Demeanor, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey, Paul, and Bluefront, and the Lenina. You want to join their ranks, you can do so. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. Get your name read on all of these episodes leading up to the election. All right, Friday's episode. We're going to 2 of our power pitches. 2 things that you know we love to do on this show. We're talking debates. I've got my essential mixtape. I've been writing them down like a psychopath. Every time that I think of a good debate that you should watch, or rather hear me talk about, leading in to the debate next month. Just see, I'm giving you guys some time. We're prepping. But I'm going to explain a little about the debate. Why I think it's special. Why I think it's interesting. As well as the money man, Dave Leventhal. He will be on the program on Friday to talk about the possibly shifting money tides in this race. But that's for Friday. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss all 3.